Before we jump in, we'll do our quick wins. So if anybody has a win that they want to share, I know we've been off for about 2 weeks now. Either copy you tested, maybe a new offer you put out, maybe if you got a new client as a freelancer, maybe you wrote something. Feel free to hop on and share.
I'll go first.
Sweet.
My upsell for the guitar offer that we worked on, it's like a premium offer. The actual offer is for a membership. It's converting at about a little over 30% out of the gate. And that's over almost a couple of weeks now. So I got another version that's improving that as well, but shoot, I'm happy with that.
That offer sounds like it's a home run on every level.
I know. The core offer is converting. Last time I checked, it was in the ballpark of 12% to cold leads. So
it's crazy.
That's great.
Just keep going, man. Thank you, guys.
If you need money to fund your scaling, hit me up. I'll take.
Hey, I might actually do that.
I'm in that business.
Copy incubator. Can we do that?
Yeah, so we did our first $100,000 month in consulting.
Nice.
Like on the back end of our audiobook, we've been trying to, obviously we have the agency, but obviously it's a ton of work. So I've been trying to hit $100,000 in a month for consulting for a while on the audiobook, and we finally did it. So it's pretty good.
Awesome, man.
That's great. Good job. Make it $1 million a month next, bro. Anyone else have any wins to share?
Cool. Well, let's dive into email. So I thought of numerous ways to do this with the email. There's so much that I want to teach and kind of get ingrained in your guys' head. So it's going to be split out over probably 4 to 6 weeks. And really, some of these calls might be shorter than normal, simply because I don't want to teach 2 entirely different things on the same day and confuse people. I'd rather focus each kind of day on something specific. So let me pull up my screen and we'll get started with the email. So today's is really just going to be laying the groundwork for what we're going to cover over the next 4 to 6 weeks. So this is kind of a little breakdown here of what we're going to do. So today we're going to be talking about what to do before you write an email. There's a couple of very specific things that I do before I do email. Then we're going to hit on story-based emails, kind of hot news topic style emails, curiosity, shock-based emails, contrarian emails, free plus shipping offers. Then we'll talk about subject lines. And then last but not least, we'll do kind of my process for testing and kind of conversion boosters that work on email. Like I said, my goal is to do kind of one of these topics each week so that we can go in depth on each one and really hammer each one out and stay focused on one specific topic instead of trying to combine story and shock emails into 1 week, which would just probably be confusing in the end. So yeah, like I said, today we're gonna talk about what to do before you write an email. So basically, what I'm going to share with you is my process for doing this. I've written tons and tons of emails, and these are very specific to writing affiliate swipes and emails for cold traffic. We'll dive into kind of some examples of exactly what that is. I want to show you a couple of examples of some of the stuff I went over. So story-based email, I'll pull up an example here. This was one that I wrote when I was running Patriot Health Alliance. This is very much a story-based email about a woman who gave her husband our Patriot Power Greens drink, and he was in a nursing home or a veteran's home, withering away, and then just kind of like brought a bunch of his energy and vitality back, and he was getting up and moving around the hospital. And this thing crushed for us when I wrote it in 2016, and they're still running it in 2019. This is kind of like a variation of it, but this is a really good example of a story-based email. The second one here is a hot news topic kind of email. This was a great one I saw on Joel Marion's email list. It is from female Obama. And the subject line was "Meet your next president, the female Obama." So to a conservative kind of crowd, this tons of curiosity, tapping into obviously the big thing on people's mind, which is the election. Yeah, I just thought this was a great, written by Stansberry that Joel mailed to his list, but a great kind of just email that taps into the hot news topics that are on people's minds. So that's probably the second one I usually go to in terms of when I'm looking for hooks. A curiosity shock-based email. This is really a curiosity one. This is a Joel Marion one that the Alternative Daily sent out to their list. Subject line: what peanut butter does to your body, do not eat. So that's a big curiosity play there. You're kind of wondering, like, I thought peanut butter was good for me. Then you open it up. Is peanut butter healthy? Does it cause weight gain? Or even worse, can it cause toxic health issues? You may be shocked to find out the answer in our brand new free report. Blah, blah, blah. Super simple. This one's just going to an opt-in, so it's a really short email. And we'll cover short and long emails in all the stuff that we go over. Next one is a contrarian style email. And this was another one that was on Alternative Daily. So the subject line was protein worse than smoking 20 cigarettes a day. That's a really good kind of going against the grain of protein being good for you. There's obviously a lot of shock value in that. The creative is not anything too great. It's pretty basic, but that whole hook of protein being worse than 20 cigarettes a day is kind of key here. This is another example of a contrarian one. Everybody talked about CBD being great, CBD being the greatest thing ever, and now this one's talking about how CBD doesn't work. So kind of contrarian, the big thing is just kind of going against the grain of what everyone else is saying. I get on this one that the story's not that great. It's okay. But the big thing to take away is just kind of the contrarian angle here. Then the last one we'll cover throughout the course of this will be free plus shipping offer emails. Let's see, a couple good ones I pulled up. This is one I wrote a long time ago for survival food. This was written to our own list, but we mailed it out to affiliates as well, and it worked. Basically just talking about if a crisis hit your city, everything that'd be going on, all the angry protesters, the grocery stores being wiped out. We've already seen this happen in a bunch of places. That's why I want you to be prepared, and I'm giving away this free 72-hour kit or survival food kit. So pretty basic one there. Here's one from one of the Agora companies. I'm not sure which one. 100 little known ways to maximize your Social Security. It's a couple good bullets in here, and then they're giving away a free Social Security book, trying to get you to claim that. So that's a little bit about what we're going to cover, and then we'll finish with subject lines, and then we'll do conversion tests and stuff like that. So to kind of set the stage, I want to really dial in on what our goal is here with an affiliate swipe or an email written for cold traffic. Actually, before I jump into that, anybody have any questions?
Well, I do. And we've discussed it a little bit about, my audiobook, but like, have you seen any of these, like, Frank Kern, Dean Graziosi, Capital, like any of these guys run on email successfully, or is it just too niche where it wouldn't make sense?
Like cold email?
Yeah.
I have on the list that I'm on, I don't think I've ever seen like BizOp stuff. I don't know, Stefan, have you?
I think I'll see them like every now and then, but not a ton. So like not enough to where I could be like, oh, it must be working. Like I'll see people with like health lists and things try BizUp every now and then, but then I don't see them mail again for it for like a long time. So I don't ever want to say never, but I mean, it's probably
to me, I think to make that work, it would have to be a very wide appeal BizOp offer. So like I've seen them where like people who have a whole list of women like send some type of BizOp offer about how to be like a writer at home and make $200 a day writing articles online. That to a list of women who's there's a lot of stay-at-home moms, pretty good fit. But to the general like kind of Newsmax one or those lists that Stefan and I kind of do a lot of stuff on, I don't know. I mean, like an agency type offer, like that's not going to work to those. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did work, because like that niche of like, I don't know, 55, 65-year-old people, like much of them who are retired and have money are looking for shit to do. And starting a business is kind of like a thing to do when you're 60 years old.
There's one back in the day too. It was like a ClickBank type offer about like SEO or affiliate marketing. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but I remember that like just crushed on all the health lists. This was in like 2014, 15, but everyone was like shocked, but it did extremely well. And I remember that because like my mentors at the time in the health space were kind of telling me about it. So I know that there's these rare unicorns where that it can work, but it probably really has to be the right offer, saying the right thing to the right list. Like if it's all about how like senior grandpa who was like 65, like shocks his friends at the American Legion by earning an extra $250 a day doing this one thing on his computer, kind of like work from home type stuff. It might have been, I actually do think it was Coffee Shop Millionaire, Matt. I'm pretty sure that was it. But yeah, so I think it can't, I know they can work, Mike, but it's not common. But again, that doesn't mean it couldn't work. It just would have to be really specific to the audience, I think, and then a really compelling offer.
Yep.
Cool.
So let's kind of just set the groundwork for our goal with affiliate swipes or emails written for cold traffic. This is very basic, but I want to make sure everybody understands this. The biggest thing we want is for the email to bring in the most revenue possible. So a lot of people pay attention to things like the click-through rate or the earnings per click or what kind of feedback they got from the list. I mean, to me, none of that really matters. The only thing that really matters is how much revenue does the email bring in. When affiliates are mailing for your offer, or if you're a copywriter and you wrote copy for them, the number one thing they care about is how much money does that make in comparison to other offers that they promote. So focusing on things, EPC is like a big thing that a lot of people will focus on. And to me, it's a misguided metric, because it really, the EPC could be really high, but you can still be making less than what you make promoting other offers. So what really matters is how much money they make when they send for you. And then a big thing down here is that I want to stress is that your email should be written in a way that other affiliates or cold traffic lists can use the same one. You really don't want to be trying to write multiple emails for multiple affiliates and trying to customize. Like, it's the scalability of that is not good. So I'm a huge fan of writing the email one way that can just be used over and over and over again. I'm sure Stefan probably agree with that. Stefan, anything you want to chime in with?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty good. I going back to knowing the customer. I mean, because the same thing we talk about the RMBC method and like research. It's like the same thing even with email too. I think people make that mistake of writing emails that aren't actually speaking to who the customer is, and I guess, and again, like knowing the list, right? Knowing kind of like who's mailing for it and like targeting for that. Like if you have like a whole thing about like upset tummies, but you're emailing to a bunch of like male dominant lists, then that's like might not do that well. So just being like understanding who is actually mailing your offer too, and maybe having multiple versions, right? Multiple variants. Have the one for the dude like male conservative male list, one for like the 40+ women list, like everything like that.
Yep. Yeah, good points. We're going to get to all of that. So basically 4 things I do before I write any email. for affiliate and cold traffic stuff. Number one is know the customer. I'm not going to go too in depth with this because we've covered it ad nauseum in the Copy Accelerator group. But everything Stefan said about writing copy, which is kind of going in Facebook groups, browsing Reddit, browsing forums, actually talking to real customers, which is the best thing you can do. Figure out what's on their mind, what they're frustrated about, what type of stuff they're reading, what they're worried about, all of that stuff. If you don't know who the customer is, that is by far step one. A big one I do with email that has paid off in spades is figuring out what has already worked and also what did not work with email. So if you're a copywriter and you're writing for a client, it's one of the first things I would ask is, okay, can you send me swipes of what you guys have tried already? If you have stats on that, even better. A lot of people tend to have the things that work. Not as many people keep the things that didn't work. But the things that knowing what didn't work is just as valuable. And I'll show you a couple of examples here. This is a Dropbox folder when I was running Patriot Health Alliance that we would actually share with our copywriters who we hired to write emails. So there's like a bunch of different things in here on demographic data. We even have like radio ads, research, testimonials. Then we have two here, which are emails that worked and emails that did not work. And each one of these is in here so that the copywriter could kind of go through it and see. So I'll show you a couple of the examples. So this is one of the ones I wrote that did freaking awesome. It was one of our first ones. Basically talking about how V8 juice is really bad for you. People don't realize it. And then it kind of transitions and talks about how Patriot Power Greens would be a better choice to drink in the morning. So like the copywriter is able to kind of go through this and see, okay, that angle worked. This Coast Guard angle about seniors, that's an interesting angle. That worked. What else do we got? This is one that I did. It was just kind of a real like curiosity one. That worked as well. Some of these worked better than others, and I sent that information to the copywriters as well, which ones. This was probably our best one ever, which was about Dr. Sebring, the guy who was the face of the product, and kind of his amazing story. But anyways, the copywriter then has this whole thing of stuff that worked, and then I'll also show you the ones that didn't work. Oh, damn it. All right. Let me pull it back up real quick. Oops. So emails that did not work. I actually was going through this before, and I'm like going through them. I'm like, God, there's some fucking bad ones in here. This is one I tried. I tried this. This was around the time when Obamacare was like a big deal, and I tried this Obamacare angle. That one did not work at all. It bombed horribly. It was just too big of a disconnect from what we were trying to sell them. This one I tried to do one about how greens powders. There's like a Consumer Labs report about toxic stuff found in greens powders. So I tried one with that. That one did okay, but it made sales, but it didn't work. I tried this way out there angle of Christians betraying the Bible when it comes to not eating their fruits and vegetables. This one did so bad. I think I remember when we sent this one out, I was like double checking the stats because I thought something went wrong and like we didn't have the links right, but it just literally just did not make any sales. This is a real story we had of a dude who was a plumber who used our stuff, and his bad knees started feeling a bunch better. Didn't work as well. But anyways, you could see a couple of the angles I tried a survival angle. This one actually did okay. Did a survival angle about preppers stocking up on our Patriot Power Green stuff. So anyways, to get back to the point, that is figuring out what has worked and what didn't work with the email already. I'd be curious, how many people actually do that already? Feel free to either pop it in the chat, or if you want to just hop on and give me your thoughts. I'd be curious to hear. Awesome. Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you could do it through a spreadsheet or through a Dropbox folder where, I mean, the best would be the Dropbox folder where you have everything I kind of just showed you, and then also a spreadsheet of exact stats from each one, even better, showing exactly how each one did. So that's like I said, that was number 2, figuring out what works, what didn't work. And the big things to pay attention to here, what you want to look at, subject lines that worked, what lists they worked on, if you can figure out what lists they didn't work on. And then really pay attention to the type of email. That's probably the biggest thing. Is it a story-based email? Is it a curiosity-based email? I remember a couple months ago, Tanner mentioned that one of the offers they were writing a bunch of emails for, it was some type of digestive product, that the 2 stories they did, which were like these really crazy success stories, like did the best. It's like, okay, that's really good to know that you tried, I don't know, 5 or 6 other angles and none of those worked, but the 2 kind of like female stories about someone taking it and having a bunch of success with losing weight and fixing their stomach issues, that's really good to know. And then another one that I use is what other ads are working for this offer. So if someone's not running email, or if they are running email, but they're also running Facebook, YouTube, native, and there's stuff that's working on there, I 100% want to know about that, because you can transfer almost everything over. If something's like a long kind of copy ad on Facebook and it's working, very good odds that it's going to work on email as well, or some variation of it. We saw this all the time with our best emails. We literally transcribed into radio ads, and they worked just as well as radio ads. What was really interesting was that they worked in exact accordance to how they were. Like our best email on email was our best one on radio, and the second best one on email was the second best one on radio. It was like literally a direct correlation between the 2. And the same thing you kind of see with Facebook, YouTube. Native is obviously a little different, but there's a lot of stuff with native in terms of like the images you're using that can be popped into emails for big conversion boost. And we'll talk about that in the 5th or 6th week when we hit on conversion stuff. Any other questions before I jump to the next part? Maria says, when an email doesn't work, do you try it on different list or try again at a later date? Basically, when do you give it up? Good question. So for me, I'll cover this more when we get to our kind of testing process, but for me, it's always, I write usually about 4 to 8 to start, 4 to 8 emails to start, and then test all of them on similar lists. So maybe test 4 on one list, test 4 on another list. And my goal there is just to quickly weed out the ones that just bomb. And then if there's a couple that do okay, those are the ones I'm going to kind of start to focus on. So I'm really just looking for some type of traction. So if we spend $2,000 on each little like email split, and one brings back, I don't know, let's say $1,000, that's gives me confidence that if I test it enough and get the subject line dialed in and get a bunch of the copy dialed in, that it'll eventually be a pretty good email. So that's kind of the way I do it. Does that help, Maria? Cool. Dan said, do you always use headlines in emails? I tend to, yeah. Especially for cold traffic emails. The headlines, from when I did a lot of testing on these, always helped. I've seen other people not do it. But I'm definitely a fan of doing the headlines in them. That's something you could test. So the next thing we're looking for here is what other email copy is working for similar offers. So this kind of ties back to having a good swipe file. So I'll show you some of the stuff I have. I have a little tab here that every time I see a good email, I tag it in my Gmail. Something about good swipes. Sometimes it's a good subject line. Sometimes it's like good copy. Whatever it is, if it's one I see 5 or 6 times, I know it's working, and I'll just kind of keep it in here for reference. So I have this there's not a ton in here because I don't do it as often as I should, but I have a good idea of what there are for fat loss ones and what there are for financial offers and what there are for whatever I'm kind of looking for. And that's a good way to go back through and figure out what's working for other offers. Like I said, I try to find 3 to 5 examples of something that's working for another offer.
I just want to chime in on that. I do this. I just kind of save everything. And now I actually have 2. I have like a creative swipes folder, and I have one that's more for general promotional offers. Cause even on like kind of like more like branded stuff, like there's interesting things that they're doing sometimes. But I save like everything. And then when I have to write creatives or whatever, I do the exact same thing. I'll go in there and I'll look at, find ones that are like matching the topic, and I'll find the ones that I like and that I see have been sent over and over again. Cause then I know, okay, if this email's been sent a bunch of times, then it probably means it's a winner. So I just want to reiterate that because I think that's extremely helpful. Plus it gets your brain firing too, because you see a bunch of stuff that's worked and then you're like, oh, what if we did this version of it? So it's a really good strategy.
Yep. And another thing I do is I have specific folders here too for like, these are all health ones and these are all financial ones. So
yeah, I like how you do that.
What's funny is I used to have these all just go into my main inbox, and I would get like 250 emails a day, and just finally couldn't handle it anymore. But yeah, I tend to go through them like once a day, and I'll find like the really good ones. And I tend to move the good ones over to the swipe file, just to make sure I have those.
That's cool.
Nick said, do you customize the sales letter for the various email angles, or do they all send to the same sales letter? For most of the stuff that I'm doing, it's always going to the same sales letter. If I'm writing for my own offers or for a client, it's almost always going to the exact same offer or the exact same sales letter. Can you give me an example? I'm trying to think of a situation where you would have a different sales letter.
Yeah, no, I just meant like, you said you did like 4 to 8 different angles when you're launching, and a lot of times, they're completely different from one another. But if you're tying like whatever that unique angle is to the same call to action, I guess normally your sales letter can stay the same. But like if you're doing something like you obviously did one that was kind of religious focused, one that was political focused, if you're doing something like that, I didn't know if you kind of carry that same theme, or if you've tested carrying that same sort of theme, and if it's worth creating 5 variations for the different, angles you have.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. So, I mean, as you could see, a lot of the ones that I tested that were kind of outside the box did bomb because they really weren't congruent with the sales page. Maybe if there was a more congruent sales page like that religious one, maybe it would have worked. But yeah, I mean, that also kind of goes back to really obviously studying the sales page and then figuring out what the big angles are that you want to use that could be really congruent with it. I try to do, we'll get into this more next week, but like a good example of this would be when I did one for our digestive product for Patriot Health Alliance. I did 4 emails. One was about the dangers of like antacids. One was about why probiotics don't work for everyone. One was about an embarrassing, like, I can't remember what it was. It was an embarrassing like digestion story of some old lady. And then there's another one about like heartburn. So there's 4 pretty different angles or actually there's one about constipation. So there's like 4 really different angles about digestive issues. And we tested all of those. And then the one about the FDA warning about antacids ended up being the best one. And we kind of ran with that and then continued testing subject lines and more from there. Like I said, we'll dig into that later on the exact testing process. But my big idea is when we start is like casting a really wide net with throwing 4 to 8 different ideas at the wall and just kind of then from there we'll see which one sticks. Yeah, so Mike just chimed in. He said, I test the same email lead on landing page if the email is very successful. Yep, that's a strategy that I've seen work over and over. If you write something that works really well as an email, test it as the lead on the sales page too. Cool. So the last thing, so we've gone over the first 3 here, which is know the customer, figure out what's worked, what hasn't worked, find other copy working for similar offers. And then the last one is how much do I have to sell in the email versus how much can I let the VSL sales page do the selling? This is something that actually took me a little while to learn. Depending on how the sales page is written, you're going to either have to do more selling in the email or less selling in the email. So some good examples of this, the one we looked at, what was the Patriot Power Greens one that we looked at. So this one, if you look at this email, there's actually a lot of selling in it. So the story keeps going. There's testimonials, even more kind of down here about what the drink is and like there's no big curiosity play here. They're kind of giving away what it is that you're going to be sent to a page and you're going to be asked to buy something. More testimonials showing the actual product. One of the things like we learned really quickly with Patriot Power Greens is that we needed to do a lot more selling in the email versus some other offers that you can do a lot more curiosity-based stuff and just get as much clicks as possible. That was just kind of due to how our sales page was written. So I'll show you a kind of a different one, which would be the Gundry offers. So this is a Gundry offer. And if you look at the copy on this, it is super, super basic. There's nothing that really stands out about it, nothing really unique about it. It's talking about toxic proteins. But if you read the copy here, it's short. It's very kind of just trying to get you to click. But one of the reasons that Gundry offers don't have to sell as hard is because the VSL is so damn good that it works without a huge kind of email in front of it. And one of the other ways to know this is like if you're able to run an offer from like native traffic that goes straight to a VSL or from some type of like banner traffic that goes straight to a VSL and it works, you could probably get away with a lot shorter copy in your email. You can get away with these kind of curiosity-based ones a lot more. I'd be curious. I don't know if Allison is on from Golden Hippo, if she had any insight into kind of their emails. Yeah, you are here. Do you want to hop on? Do you have any insight into?
Yeah. Hey. So it's, I mean, basically exactly what you said. The offers are really good. A lot of them we've been running for a number of years. But we're still constantly like testing everything and trying new leads and rewriting the closes and all of that. But a lot of these swipes are based on emails that we're sending to our back-end list. And then when those perform well, then we're basically tweaking them to send to affiliates.
Awesome. And then, so one thing, like you guys definitely do a variation of, you have longer email swipes, you have shorter ones. Is that mostly you guys just kind of test everything and whatever sticks.
Yeah, we like throw a lot at the wall to see what sticks. And I actually don't have a lot of insight into how the affiliate emails perform because we've got like a whole other world that talks to them and gets all that data. But yeah, we also have like a lot of our affiliates write their own emails and then just pass them through us to be approved and make sure there's no crazy claims or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do a bit of everything.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for chiming in. Yeah. So that was the last thing I wanted to hit on was basically how much do I need to sell in the email versus how much can I let the VSL or the sales page do the selling? Especially when you have an offer that has a very, I don't know, e-com style, clean kind of page, you're going to probably have to do a lot more selling in the email. If you have one that's written really, really well and it's converting off, like I said, banner traffic or native or something like that, you're not going to have to sell as much. And you can get away with a lot more really short, curiosity-based copy. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to dive into all that in the coming weeks. But this week, my main goal here was just to lay this foundation for the big 4 kind of pre-writing things you want to do, and just to kind of reemphasize those. It's know who the customer is, and you guys know all the stuff in terms of going through Reddit, Facebook groups, talking to customers, going to forums, figuring out all that type of stuff. Figure out what worked, what didn't work in terms of email already, finding other copy working for similar offers, and then really analyze the landing page and see how much you're going to have to sell versus how much you can let the landing page do the selling. So those are kind of the big 4 things. And then the bonus thing here, which I said, was create a Gmail tab of your best swipes. That's probably one of the most helpful things you can do, because you can just pop back in there and figure out what looks good, what's working. You can get subject line ideas, you can get hook ideas, you can get all kinds of stuff. So like I said, these calls are going to be a little shorter than the normal ones because I want to break them out so that we kind of stay focused on each thing. Does anybody have any questions right now? Or Stefan, do you have anything you want to
add? No, my end. I mean, I think this is great. I think as you go through some of the different types in more detail on these calls, I'll probably want to hop in and show examples of ones I really like too. I mean, just because they've got my wheels turning, I'm thinking about other awesome creatives I've seen. And but I think, the one thing to just reiterate to our members here is that it really is like the 80-20 thing going on, or even like a power law, which is like you'll find like 1 or 2 creatives like are, bringing 80% of the revenue versus like, the other 80% of them are going to bring in 20%. Like when you get a couple of good creatives, a couple of good emails that really do hit, it's just like night and day. And so I'm excited for this process and to watch you do it and go through stuff, Justin, because it really, I think so many people kind of have some creatives and they seem okay and nobody complains and they just sort of like, are like, I guess they're fine, but they don't actively test them. They don't do all these things that you're about to be teaching. And I think they're probably leaving, anywhere from hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars on the table as a result. So I just want to stress the importance and value of what you're going to be teaching here. I'm very excited for it.
Awesome, man. And yeah, the point you brought up there is actually so dead on about the 80-20. I would say for Patriot Power Green specifically, when we were cranking that at full steam, I probably wrote close to 50 or 60 email creatives that were tested for that. And 3 of them drove the whole thing.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, that's obviously a lot of testing, but like the ones that worked are still running 4 years later today. Like it's a variation of them. Like they've changed it up a little bit, but just like anything, you can keep them going. And some of them will die. Some will die, and then you bring them back a year later, and all the lists you're running to are like refreshed and new people, and they start working again.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nick said, "What's your thoughts on putting the whole sales letter in the email?" Yeah, so BioTrust does this a lot. I have actually never tested it. I think if you're going to do a sales letter that's kind of BioTrust-like, where it's very, I don't know how you would call it, very just kind of clean, and then you're sending them over to almost like a checkout page is what they're doing. It's going to work better than writing an email creative and then sending to a sales page. And in that scenario, I think it's definitely worth a test, especially when you're doing free offers. free plus shipping offers, I think it would be worth it to us.
Dr. Al Sears does that in a lot of his emails too. So Nick, if you're not on his list, it's worth looking. He does like these kind of like, they're long, but yeah, just because basically do a mini little econ page after that. And it seemed to work well for him. I've never done it either, but I have seen it work.
Well, I mean, if you just think about it from a math standpoint, you're getting 100% of the eyeballs on the sales letter. Like,
right.
It has to work better.
Right.
Let's see. Tanner said, what metrics are you looking to hit on your paid drops in order to consider it working? Are you just trying to break even, or does it have to make money? So that number is different for every business. When I was running high volume of these, it was much more, we like to be in the positive on them. But we would also go down to about like 20% negative. Like I said, it really depends on the business owner, what they're comfortable with. Obviously, the smartest way business-wise is to go as negative as you can tolerate and acquire as many customers as possible, because acquiring a customer is the hardest thing in this business. So if you can do it at a negative, if you can do it at 20% negative, even if you're uncomfortable going negative, like, it's a better business decision because you're acquiring a bunch of customers. One thing to keep in mind there too is that there's not a direct correlation between so let's say you have a CPA of $65 to acquire a customer. If you start spending $75, it's not usually like a 10% jump or whatever, that $10 jump. It's usually actually like sometimes you can acquire double the amount of customers with that $10 jump. Or triple the amount of customers. So by going maybe, let's say 30% negative, you might be able to acquire 2 times as many customers as you could acquire if you're like at break even. Sam said, what do you think is the reason why some creatives live on for a while versus some die after a few months? In my experience, almost all of mine died after 4 to 5 months. The ones that we hit really, really heavy, that were just being mailed on 50 to 100 lists. But there are a couple things you can do. A is if you can get 2 to 3 subject lines working for one creative, that definitely extends the life of it. And if you can get multiple creatives working at once, that also extends the life of it. So like, let's say you're running on Newsmax twice a month. If you have 2 email creatives to run instead of 1, the life of those creatives is going to last a lot longer. And even if one of them is not as good, like let's say one converts 20% less than the other one, you're still getting a bump because you can extend the life of both creatives by running them both. That's a big thing a lot of people don't really think about. Like somebody will hire a copywriter and say, I want you to beat my current control. And I'm always like, well, if they could just get one that's actually just close to your current one, you should gladly pay them for that, because now you have 2 controls you can run. Stefan knows this, like with his recent stem cell offer, like that email creative was so good that I think it kind of burned out finally after a couple months.
Yeah.
But if he had had another control creative run with that, it probably would have lasted a lot longer.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the thing. That offer, it's a good offer, but it like totally, the email is what made that. So it's like they paid me like $60,000, but really it's like in a way they didn't pay me $60,000 for the sales letter. They paid me $60,000 for that creative, you know, like the sales letter, again, it's great. And now they have 2 different variants that they can be sending to. And it, you know, it's done. It gives them a straight sale option. It does all kinds of cool things for them, but really the email is the most valuable thing I did for them. And it took me like, 10 minutes to write, which is so funny.
I mean, that's actually a big point, that a really good email. I mean, I've literally seen the best emails I've written have done more than, I think it's like 10 to 12 times better than like mediocre emails I've written. Yeah. I mean, it's a huge difference. It really can't be stated enough how big of a difference it is.
It's in your best interest too, right? Because again, if you're, as a copywriter, to give your client some creatives to work with and to test and give them good ones. Because like if one of those hits, like you just look super fucking good. because like now you're like, you know, they don't really, even if like your letter is neck and neck with another one, like Justin said, it's like, yeah, if that creative is hitting, like they just are going to come back and hire you because it means they can acquire so many more customers and just scale so much.
Yep. Maria said, when resending the same offer to your list, do you have an indication of how many more people mark you as spam? I've never seen that be a problem. People mark stuff as spam and all that for like the most random reasons ever. I've never had that be an issue though. Peter said, is there a master file of emails that bomb versus ones that crushed, or can we start one? Looks like Stefan gave you one.
Yeah, that's in the swipe file. I'm actually at my inbox open. I'm not going to do it too much right now, but I'm going to download some more recent ones and I'll add those in there too.
Cool. Anybody else? Questions? So next week we'll dive into very specific stuff on emails. We're going to go into story-based emails next week, which are by far my favorite ones. And we're going to really dive into how to write a good kind of dramatic emotional story that works in email. Because a lot of the ones we see in the group, we tell people to write stories, but people aren't really writing like stories that grab you. And as we kind of heard on the call that we did with Chris Haddad, that the more emotional, the more dramatic, the more grabbing the story is, like it's off the charts how much difference the conversion rate makes. So we're going to dive in next week and do really, really good story-based emails and focus the whole call on story-based emails and how you can do that for different niches. So we're going to go over a couple for health. We'll do some biz op ones. We'll do financial, kind of all over the place. Stefan, anything you want to add? That's all I got.
No, I don't think so. Just a reminder that we have our next tried and true compliance call on Thursday at the regular time. I'll put a reminder in the Facebook group too. And that you guys are getting ready for Vegas. We'll have the location finalized this week. It's between two places. I'm going to talk with Justin about it, which Justin and I are talking tomorrow. But we'll have updates on where the location is going to be. But I hope you guys are pumped. Oh, Tanner did pop in a question here too.
So Tanner said, do you think the reason Patriot Power Green's emails had to be longer is because it was a long form text letter versus the short Gundry emails that send to a VSL? It was mostly because our sales page that I wrote was very product focused. The sales page wasn't one where, like a Gundry VSL, you could show up at having click on a banner and the whole 50-minute VSL kind of takes you through everything. Whereas the Patriot Power Green sales page was much more just product focused. It was long as shit, but it was still very product focused. It didn't have a huge kind of story in it. The stories tended to be actually in the emails instead of in the sales page. Do you add any images or video in the email? Yes. We will cover that, Maria, later on when we do testing and conversion stuff, because there's a ton of stuff I've tested with images and headlines and kind of how to set up the email and fonts and all that fun stuff. They make a big difference. Any other questions before we wrap it up? Cool. All right. Well, that'll wrap up today's call. For anybody that is in the goal group, if you are new on the call, I don't know. We have a new member, Eddie. I don't know if Eddie made it on the call or not. But yeah, so if you're in the gold group, this kind of ends that portion of the call. And then platinum group, what do you want to say, like 56 after, we'll come back?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Cool. If you guys have any questions in the meantime, feel free to pop them in the group. And if not, we will see you guys next week.
Great. Thank you, guys.